So just to give a little recap on the points of this level, which were sweeps, passes, and escapes. In terms of sweeps, just anything that turns the person over, that takes you from the bottom to the top. I think it's important to note a couple things. Number one is you can do your sweeps in a very aggressive manner. You can know what you want. You can use it as a way to turn someone over and be very persistent. Or some people are very passive about it and sort of tricky. Kind of lay back, let the person move around like the butterfly sweep. He starts to pass and boom, you lay it on him as a surprise. That's always good if you can do that because then you don't have to face the person's resistance. As you're fighting a better opponent, you're going to have to do more of the aggressive sweeps, like maybe the double hooking sweep where you're just doing it and you can't stop it and you force your way through and you make it happen. My little tidbit of advice on sweeps is be sensitive to the time when you're initially off balancing the person and when they kind of pass that point of no return. Once they pass that point of no return, which in the case of a hooking sweep would be right about now. He's falling, he can't go back. Now is my chance to stop pushing and switch for the control position, which in this technique was the mount, okay? To start thinking about the control, so while he's still thinking about falling, I'm thinking about the next move. The other good example would be the hooking sweep when he was standing, open guard, hooking sweep, him coming down, he's falling, he's worried about falling, I should be worried about mounting. If I wait and sit here and he hits the ground and now we're both worried about getting up, it's going to be an even fight. So try to pay attention to when you don't need to keep that move going any further. Now is my chance to worry about the position while he's still worrying about falling. Any thoughts on sweeps there, John?
I would say initially at a beginner level, beginner intermediate level, when you achieve a new position, and that's all a sweep is really doing, giving you a new position from underneath and going on top, that once you get that position, your first priority should be to keep it. At a more advanced level, when you become more proficient with both the sweeps and attacks, you may want to start to think about the attack. So again, we're using the same example as hooking sweep. I take David over, I'd like to be starting to think straight away about following up rather than so much about establishing my position. Because it can be argued that if I put the attack on, the pressure on him, that puts him into a defense mode and he's not busy escaping my position. But that's a little bit more advanced, but that's the sort of skill we want to try to acquire.
Thoughts about passing in general?
Passing, I think, it's easy to think about passing. One of the mistakes beginners can make is they focus on the goal, the end point. I need to get there. But to me, it's very important. Before I even think about my pass, is about not getting swept, not getting armbarred, not getting choked. There's plenty of stuff I've got to think about whilst I'm passing and not just about getting to the end.
I've sometimes conceptualized grappling as just a game about passing the guard and defending. If you can defend the guard, if no one can pass your guard, then as long as you can defend against certain foot attacks, you can't be defeated. You may not win, but you won't lose. You can hold out. On the other hand, if you can pass anybody's guard, then you're going to win, because eventually you're going to tire them out, you're going to get on side control, you're going to hold them down, eventually they're going to make a mistake. So the ability to pass well is very, very important.
In terms of escapes, the last section of that, I would think that in escapes, one of the things that we need to do is make sure that we keep in mind we're not Superman. No one can get out with one big explosive motion against someone larger and stronger. Even if you do use one big explosive action, the problem with that is you usually expose yourself, you usually run out of energy doing it, and if it doesn't work, the biggest thing of all, if it doesn't work and you've given it your best shot, you take a psychological beating for that. You think, well, I've done my best, I'm still under here, now I can't get out. So you take a slightly different approach, and that is I want to get out in 10 little moves. That way, if I don't get out in the first 2 or 3, I'm still fine with that. If I get out in 3 or 4, it's Christmas. I get a bonus for that. So lots of little moves, it's energy, I conserve my energy, I don't expose myself, and I don't take a psychological beating. So I would say small moves, bit by bit.
I think having those little small goals on just getting my arm free or just getting to my side gives you also little anchor points where you feel comfortable, where at least you know if you can get there, you can make your next step. And it gives you something to focus on rather than the whole big move. The other thing I like to remind people is understand it's hard to get out from the bottom. That's why you want to be on top, because it's hard to get out from the bottom. So you're not doing something wrong if you have a hard time escaping. Everybody has a hard time escaping. What you do need to remember is what you need to escape is space. What you need when you're on top or to apply a finish is tightness. Okay? To escape, whether it's escaping an armbar, escaping side control or whatever, you need space. So you need to find a way to efficiently create the space that you somehow lost when the person passed your guard or whatever, and how to keep it so you can make your escape. And that involves sometimes the movement of the hips to make the space, the positioning of the hands to keep it, as opposed to, you wouldn't walk up to a brick wall and try to make space by pushing the brick wall over. Okay, that would be crazy. Well, that's like taking a heavy person and trying to push them off of you. What you would do with the brick wall is you would back away. What you do when the big heavy person's on top of you is you make your hip movement back away, move out to the side, and then try to preserve that space. That's the most important thing I think about escaping.